comes from Maya Angelo, who says, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." This is how I welcome you to yet another edition of the Star Good Morning Show. Today being Tuesday, 21st of May 2019. I am Leonora Jawara. And top stories we shall be looking in the program today. The Smallholder Commercialization and Agribusiness Development Project through the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Food Security has engaged farmers, community leaders and stakeholders for rehabilitation of 142 kilometers of feeder roads in 6 districts across the country. The Ministry of Health and Sanitation has held a 2-day training for media practitioners across the country to deepening the understanding of journalists in reporting health issues at the Resource Center in Bo. Residents and stakeholders of Giana Siwafe Nimiyama Chiefdom Kono District have called on the government and other non-governmental organizations to improve on their livelihood in the area of communication, road network, education, medical facilities, and safe drinking water. With me in the studio is Brahma Michael Toure from the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. He will be talking to me on the 70 million World Bank project called Focusing Resources on Equity and Excellence in Education. Good morning, Brahman. Welcome to the program.
Morning, thanks for having me.
Welcome. And remember, the Star Good Morning Show is sponsored by Rokel Commercial Bank. Let's have a message from our sponsors.
If you want to get your lunch around quick one without waste time from supermarket or restaurant at home, you not feel say that go fine if you just take what you want without not snap na long line. With Rokel Commercial Bank Copper Pass, it's free, easy, and are the fastest way for make payment with just your phone. Scan the Rokel Commercial Bank Copper Pass QR code and make your payment instantly. You no need no internet na your phone. Rokel Commercial Bank, the bank of choice.
Well, now let's begin the program with our first news item. Now, the Smallholder Commercialization and Agribusiness Development Project through the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Food Security has engaged farmers, community leaders and stakeholders for rehabilitation of 142 kilometers of feeder roads in 6 districts across the country. Creating Thomosa has more and in our reports.
Smallholder Commercialization and Agribusiness Development Project through the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Food Security has engaged farmers, community leaders and stakeholders for the rehabilitation of 142 kilometers of feeder roads in 6 districts at a first phase public disclosure on the 16th, 17th and 18th May 2019. Potloko, Tonkolili, Kono, Bonth, Moyamba and Kailan districts respectively has benefited in the rehabilitation of 142 kilometers of feeder roads as part of their first phase of the environmental and social impact assessment for the rehabilitation of
take the farm produce to marketing centers. That is the most important thing when we go into roads. Last year, people they comment, say why agriculture they go into roads. The Ministry of Agriculture, they go into roads. Well, majority they don't know why road is important to agriculture. But I want to tell everybody that I say the road is very, very necessary for me and you. In Sierra Leone, we produce a lot of foodstuffs of different types. But we get a challenge of taking them farm produce there to marketing centers. In Sierra Leone, we produce a lot of foodstuffs of different types. But we get a challenge of taking them farm produce there to marketing sectors.
Madam Aminata Bundu, the Social Environmental Safeguard Officer of SCADEP Sierra Leone, highlighted some of the environmental issues and said that the project is purportedly to kickstart in late June and will last for 9 months.
For ask you, waiting they happen at your road, waiting they use the road for, whose problem the road they give. So they write all of that they don't, then they also ask for any social issues. So if you get public health units on your road, if you get schools and other social services, and also, like if you need bridge or you need culvert or usadi watade settle baku, able for pass now rain season. So they ask you about all this problem where the road they give and how we can help you for improve your road. So you can reach the markets, you can reach the Port town center, and you can do your other business then. And then you picking themselves, then can use the road for going to school. You better woman can go to the clinic, or yourself if you know well, you can go to the clinic. So they ask you all of these questions, then they make reports. These reports when they make out, then send them to me. So me within a free time, I read the report, I ask questions. If they capture all things where they need for capture from the people waiting at the road, as well as other environmental and social issues where we look at.
As part of their contribution towards the construction of these feeder roads, the chief engineer of Feeder Road, Sierra Leone Road Authority, Tamba Amara, said that gone are the days of olden-style system of the SLRA in constructing or monitoring roads that doesn't last longer, but however appeal for financial support in the maintenance of the roads.
The Sierra Leone project, the government asked for this money for everybody in Sierra Leone. So district then benefit from roads. Other districts then they benefit from the agricultural package, like you say. Some they benefit from both. But at one point in time, every district they benefit. In fact, agriculture, the other project they already do, we keep that like you mentioned, with other districts they say they benefit. So at the end of the day, in Sierra Leone, they try to provide for the people, which is a good thing. How we can decide? We in SLRA, any road we see in Sierra Leone, any road. Are we the organizer? Are we the manager? Are we the show for implementer? But with different people that they bring money, donors that they can, so that so we can decide. So if the roads no more, we involve in everything with them.
Some of the participants thanked SCADEP for such a project and promised to give their fullest support of the project, which will ensure it becomes successful as it is for the growth of their district. Insert. For Star News, Creighton Thomas reporting.
Many thanks to you, Creating Thomas, for that report. It's 14 minutes gone past the hour 9, and you're watching the Star Good Morning Show live here on Star TV. Like I said earlier, Brahma Michael Toure is with me in the studio. Welcome again, Brahma. Good morning again.
Good morning.
First, before we talk about the 70 million World Bank project, let's get a brief update of the ministry. What has been happening?
Well, a lot has been happening within a very short period of time. Keep in mind, after the launch of the free quality education in August, a lot of other things have actually taken place. Positive things I would have to add. So we are excited that we're making progress in terms of making sure that we now have our kids in school. This is we have paid fees for the first time and second time successfully to all government and government-assisted schools. Heads of schools have been able to utilize this money to run the schools. We're excited about it. Our numbers have swelled up in terms of enrollment because of the free quality education. Now we have more people accessing education, which is the number one thing in our education sector plan, access to education. Of course, the public examinations, we have seen the conduct of the NPSC, and now WAS is almost completing. And we have also seen how we're cracking down on the malpractices.
Which we'll have to talk on shortly.
Yes, and so last year we sent 33,000 candidates. This year is a little over 137,000. So it means 107,000 more candidates this year added to last year's number. So that's progress in itself. It's a big leap from 33 to 137. And we have seen fees paid by the government to WAEC, and which enable WAEC to be able to conduct the examinations effectively and to even additionally add money to providing security around the examination papers, the reason why we did not hear anything like leakages this year. The minister still continues on his social mobilization. He just came back from Falabadi Street, where he went with the deputy minister and a team of ministry staff to actually continue to sensitize people about the need to actually support the free quality education so that we'll be able to realize the full benefit of that laudable government project. So a whole lot of things, like I said, and we're very excited and encouraged by that.
Okay, as we go on, you will tell us more about what has been achieved so far in the first phase of the free quality education. But let's talk about the focusing resources on equity and excellence in education project, which the World Bank has gave 70 million for. What is this project all about?
So this is one of several other projects that the World Bank is actually supporting and have been supporting over the years. And so we continue to be excited with the World Bank as a very positive partner in education and in several other endeavors of government. But when we look at education, this is a project that is going to complement the free quality education very extensively and in very profound ways, for the simple fact that it captures a whole lot of things that may have been a very serious problem in the free quality education. So focusing resources on equity and excellence, so we call it free projects. So free education, and now we have free projects complementing the free education. The amount is 70 million, and the nature of the project is a multi-phased project. So this is the first phase, 4 years. We'll look at what is going to happen and what are the things that must happen first before implementation is what we have undertaken. Part of those things, that is the consultative conferences that we have held in Kenema, where we had Kono, Kailaun coming to Kenema.
Conferences with who?
With stakeholders.
Okay.
Stakeholders, like a whole set of stakeholders, chiefs, local council people, city mayors, local government councillors, officials from the Ministry of Education and other line ministries. You have school management committees, SLTU, Conference of Principals.
What is the rationale for that conference?
So the World Bank is very keen usually on making sure that before a project is implemented, it has a buy-in from all of the stakeholders that are directly impacted by that project. So if there are environmental issues, for example, the World Bank would want to make sure that those issues are addressed before the project is even implemented, or at least we have a way of addressing those issues before the project is implemented to make sure that their projects are in line with the existing laws of the land. And so it's just a policy of the World Bank to make sure that if you're doing something, let it get the support and buy-in from the stakeholders that are responsible or that are going to be the direct beneficiaries. And so that is the reason why we start with the consultative conference, so that people get their own input into how we can mitigate some of the challenging issues that may come up in the process of implementing the project. So we started in Kenema with Kailaun and Kono meeting in Kenema on the 7th, and on the 8th we were in Bo with Moyamba, Pujeong, and Bond meeting in Bo. And so it's all about making sure that we let people understand what the project is going to be focusing on, the things that are going to be actually embarked on, and what would be the responsibility of all the stakeholders in making sure that the project succeeds.
So take us through those, for those of us who are not at the conference. What will the projects be focusing on?
So the project will be focusing on 5 phases. Here, components we call them. So component 1 will be school improvement programs. So selected government and government assisted schools. And so the projects...
All schools across the country?
Well, for a start, there will be selection of schools, not all schools. Start with selecting a certain number of schools. And so school improvement programs would be, we look at the school, we look at the challenges that could potentially make that school not actually improve in the quality of education. And so we'll make a decision as to how much we can fund that school in order for that school to be able to improve. Okay, because we have the second component, teacher professional development and management. You cannot run a free quality education effectively without a very solid and potent teaching force. So resources would have to be spent on teacher training, teacher management, teacher development, and all of these things around capacitating the teacher to the point where when he or she stands in front of that classroom, he or she is able to deliver favorably. And so you look at the third component, system administration, governance, and accountability. You look at how to administer schools, heads of schools, what they need to actually provide the kind of administration, the kind of supervision around their institutions. And then, of course, making sure that if a penny is spent, someone is able to account for it. Because it's very encouraging when a partner knows that you're actually spending the money for the intended purpose. They will be encouraged to spend even more. As I speak, even with this project, other partners have actually said they want to come on board. So the amount is going to increase, because they have seen the steps we have already taken to be very positive steps. And so they are excited and encouraged to put their own money into the basket so that we can expand and do more things. Component 4 would be program management, coordination, and monitoring and evaluation. Managing the program, making sure that we go strictly in line with what the program says it should be. How much money that should be spent, why it should be spent, who is going to account for that, and all of these things. We have to monitor also how the program is being implemented from start to finish. Then we evaluate at the end of the day if in fact it has met all specifications, and if in fact it's going to yield the kind of dividend that we expect to see. So these are the last component is called the contingency emergency response component, wherein certain amount of money would be put aside in the event that something unexpected comes up. Remember, at one time we had Ebola. World Bank came in big because we had to divert some of the resources we had for certain things to the emergency response business of Ebola. And so that is why it is emerging issue. It's lessons learned. So now when World Bank is financing a project, most projects they would have something continue. In the event that something happens beyond what we were anticipating, we can have resources to divert to that situation. So those are the 5 components that this project will be focusing extensively.
Okay, so the 70 million, is it a loan or a grant?
It's not a loan. It's not a loan, it's a grant.
Okay.
Not a loan. So it's money that we're not going to pay back, but that we are expected to utilize judiciously based on the components that we have so that we would achieve the ultimate goal.
So all this money is coming in. Tell us about the monitoring and implementation of the project. Who's monitoring? How is it going to be implemented?
So all of these stakeholders that I've named, they are part of all of this monitoring. When you think of city mayors, you think of chairman, city chairman, you think of councillors, you think of civil society, you think of heads of schools, heads of organizations like the SLGU, heads of organizations like the National Council of Head Teachers, the Conference of Principals, all of these stakeholders, and of course Ministry of Education. Keep in mind now we have, apart from the deputy directors in each one of the 16 districts, we now also have deputy directors for the Teaching Service Commission in each of the 16 districts, and we also have monitors. We have free education, free quality education officers in each of the districts. So we have a team in each of the districts that will champion the cause of monitoring what is happening and reporting back to us. And so we are encouraged by the fact that all of the stakeholders are willing to work with us, and law enforcement also is part of it. Civil society, we expect them to come in extensively because they have to look at what we do and report back to the general public.
Okay, so the stakeholders you met, how did they take this project? Were they happy? Was it a welcoming thing for them?
They're excited, especially given the fact that when we first started with free quality education, that was one of the skepticism. People were very skeptical about where is the money going to come from. But like I have said from the very start, you do not wait until you have all the resources to start a project. If you're very passionate about it and if there is the you start and good partners will come on board, and this is what we have started seeing. Once the free quality education kicks off and people have started seeing what is happening, they know there's progress and there's potential for progress, and so they're coming on board. And so everybody is excited that at least we're beginning to see partners coming in and complementing government in terms of what government needs to have. They have different different things that this project is going to handle, and that is exactly what we had a very serious concern about, like school infrastructure, for example, like teachers. Up to now, teachers are still complaining that they want to hear what is in their package. So if government is able to source out money from other partners to do other things, government would have resources to increase on the package of teachers. So see, that's how it complements. Partners usually don't pay salaries, but if they can help with other things that government would have spent money on, then what government would have spent by way of doing those things could be diverted to paying of salaries and other things. And so that all complements what government
Okay.
is supposed to do.
Well, when we come back, we have a whole lot of issues to look at. We've got education, exam malpractice, and you tell us the fate of teachers and a whole lot more. But we've also been joined in the studio by Ansumana Soko. We shall join him shortly also. Let's go in for another news item. Now, the Ministry of Health and Sanitation has held to the training for media
personal and professional obligation to disclose key information in a timely manner in order to remain ethically compliant with the professional code. This obligation encompasses an individual knowing what and how much information to include in a report for it to be complete, that is not omitting essential facts.
And accurate, and at the same time, it should be timely. We are working with the MDs, ministries, departments, and agencies. So we see the need for you to join us to diffuse important information. And we are also doing this training in the context of One Health. That is why you see members of our committee of practice, I mean the communication officers from the Ministry of Agriculture, the Environment Protection Agency, and also the ONS, because we are working within the One Health platform. So we expect that by the end of these sessions, you will be able to actually understand basic things as the
role of EPA during emergency. Well, our role during emergency is limited. It's that of secondary. Our primary role is the preventive measures before emergency. That is what the EPA stands for. So we give a lot of awarenesses, a lot of sensitization, a lot of community engagement, just so to ensure that we limit or reduce the impact of emergency. Our mandate, our vision, what is the environmental emergency, what is an environmental emergency, the causes, our health priorities during emergency, what will be the role of EPA, and then we'll look at our presence, where you can locate.
Alright, it's 9:30 from Studio Clock, and this is the Star Good Morning Show. I've been joined by Ansumana Soko, is the project manager for WashNet Sierra Leone. We're looking at water scarcity in the country and government efforts in helping to improve on water association in Sierra Leone. Good morning, Ansumana. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Panora. Thanks for having me.
I'm Leona. Okay. What's the current situation of our water crisis in the country?
Yes, thankfully we had what we call the MIC6 multiple indicator cluster survey. Its findings for 2017 was just released by Statistics Sierra Leone, and it came out very clearly, that progress with regards to reaching out access, is very much staggering. So coverage at the national level is still at 58% in terms of like how many Sierra Leoneans that do have access to improved drinking water services, whereas we now have a bit increased sanitation coverage by 16. So like 16% of citizens having access to improved sanitation services. But it is, however, worthy of note that we still do have well over 20% of citizens who are it's still very much a challenge for the water sector.
So, are we making progress in accessing safe drinking water?
Incrementally, I would say yes, but the pace at which we are reaching that goal is very much slower, particularly when we have earlier set global targets, for example, reaching 74% of our citizens with access by, to water supply and sanitation services by 2015 initially. So we shifted it to be able to reflect, the timeline of the National Development Plan, which actually ended in December of 2017, the third generation of the PRS. And now we are now aiming at the 2030 development priority. So these are like a call on, specifically government to be able to ensure that much steps are taken to be able to ensure we are not only delivering the services, but we need to be able to redouble our efforts, so at least we are not losing very critical opportunities of not meeting every secondary access.
All right. Water Association, it's not new in Sierra Leone. There are so many areas not having enough safe drinking water supply. What do you think are some of the issues to our water problems?
We need to first agree that we have operated, very aging infrastructure over the period. So like the aging infrastructure was not in fact built for a population that we have now. So you begin to in fact imagine how it is now stretching to reach out to populations, that it ordinarily did not cater for. Take for example Freetown. Freetown was actually, the Goma Valley system was constructed for between 250,000 to 500,000 people. And now you imagine well over 1,500,000 people. You take the Digimon schemes that were, for example, in existence in Kono, Kenema, and the other schemes in Bombali. These have actually gone down over the period. They've gone moribund. So with the Freetown Water Supply and Sanitation Project, these are now like, more or less, some are new systems, some are like hybrid of the existing systems, how they are also able to be functional and serve the needs of the people. So when you look at these very new developments in the sector, it has equally taken not only the delivery of the services, but equally looking at the institutional, the regulatory, as well as the policy environments, which are very much critical and necessary for progressive realization of the right to water and sanitation. So, but when you get to the lower level, it is no citizens' expectation that the laws must be there. The expectation of the policies must be very clear. All they are interested in is to be able to have access to the services. So in actual sense, they don't see the policy, the institutional as well as the regulatory mechanisms as progress on the part of the delivery of wash processes, but generally how they can open their tap and have water in them, which is very urgent for, as a major public health concern, because the more people continue to have, unprotected sources, definitely, that plays undue burden on government as well, particularly on the health system, which government is in fact not prepared to address.
So many people, most times when there is lots of water scarcity, they ask the question, the water supplier, Guma and Selwako, there is this question, is it that they are becoming increasingly inadequate to supply water for the growing population in the country?
When you look at, I gave you an example. Okay, for Salwako, to a very large extent, I would say, they are quite different. But like for Guma Valley, they just are operating a system that has been there for well over 50 years. So the capacity of the system to be able to hold the water, more than it can, is not there. So that's why you see a lot of rationing. And any attempts to be able to expand that very system will lead to a total collapse of it. So that tells you that it's a very fragile system and it is very much aging. And that's why we have been equally calling for moving beyond the quick fixes, moving beyond the short-term approaches to be able to move more into medium to long-term strategies. So we now see government looking into the Orugu and Rokel River possibilities of expanding access. When you look at Salwako to a very large extent, you take the Small Town Water Supply and Sanitation Project, you take the Three-Town Water Supply Project, for Makeni, Bo, and Kenema. The project is there, but connection to households as well as institutions remain a challenge. So how do we now ensure that, the huge amount of resources that have gone into that project. We get people to be able to actually realize and equally pay for the services, because honestly, the possibility of people paying for the services do exist enormously, and in fact they have expressed heightened willingness to pay for the services, but they just are not connected to be able to have access to the services. So what we now really look forward to is to be able to ensure that SAWACO deploys as many plumbers as possible, as well as a system in place to be able to regulate billing, so at least we are equally not, you know, reverting to the system or the challenges that Goma Valley is now facing in the western area. So it's about SAWACO learning from those processes to be able to ensure that as it connects to households as well as institutions, they are able to take along those challenges as learning to be able to improve on the services at the public channel.
Okay, so quickly before I come back to Brima, we've highlighted some of the issues, the challenges facing the water sector. But what, in your view, do you think are some of the possible ways we can help tackle some of these issues?
You know, when we look at the sector generally, there's issues around financing. So how do we ensure that we get the required kind of resources to be able to deal with the growing and emerging needs? We look at, you know, issues around coordination, that the central leadership is required to be able to ensure it is able to coordinate all players in the space. One, we are able to build on sustainability of the services that people are providing. Mind you, we have well over 32,000 water points across the country. And out of the 32,000 water points, I'll tell you, well over 28% of them are seasonal. 28%, sorry, are seasonal. So that tells you, people are just providing the services and it is not serving the people here around. You know, so how do we ensure that government is equally providing the central level leadership, so at least to be able to ensure that sustainability is there, and then it is providing, you know, the environment to be able to have, you know, citizens to be healthy. So generally, when you look at what needs to be done, we need to have, you know, the required financing, you know, not only from our own source of GDP, but equally from development partners, to be able to ensure that we are able to move up the ladder with respect to reaching out everywhere and everywhere. We equally need coordination. Coordination is very key, and equally harmonize our interventions, because we see a lot of people doing virtually the same thing. So how do we now ensure we are able to minimize leakages as well as wastages in what we are providing, you know, for the same kind of quality and for the same set of people, so at least we are able to optimize, you know, the impact that we are making. And we are equally able to scale access at the decentralized level, scaling up access at the decentralized level. We don't need to decentralize the functions without the resources going at a decentralized level. So once we decentralize the functions, they should also go with the required resources to be able to ensure that local councils at the lower level are able to sufficiently deliver on their mandate, so that it becomes, you know, an even more developed, uniform system of delivering development services, particularly those that have to do with essential services like water and health.
Okay, thank you so very much. Continue to stay with me. Is Ansumana Soko, Project Manager for WashNet Sierra Leone. We are talking about water association in the country. Now let's go back to education. Brima is still with me in the studio. Brima, before we look at other issues bordering on education, what more would you want to tell us about the FREE project?
The FREE project, let me just run through it. I mean, the 5 components actually, there are 2 outstanding components that trigger the World Bank's environmental and social, what they call it, thing. So it's very important that we look into them. And what would they be? Component 1 looks at the physical improvement to the learning environment. In order to do that, you have to engage in construction, rehabilitation, civil works, and all of that. That has to be looked at very seriously, because in the process of constructing, you would have some environmental problems around, and so those have to be addressed. We have to look at them and see how to make sure they do not really affect the communities where these projects are going to be implemented. Component 3, looking at planning and system management, but the sub-component to that is promoting gender equality in education, which falls within the World Bank's environmental and social framework as issues that should meet the environmental and social standards. So those have to be looked at. There are certain places where when there is construction going on, you know, you have young people coming around, you have young girls coming around, and so that has to be looked at so that we avoid anything that has to do with child abuse, anything that has to do with sexual abuse, and all of those things we have to look at. And then, of course, you have the anticipated positive impacts of the project, which people should understand, because that is the primary reason why I'm here today. One, it would improve the teaching and learning environment at the end of the day once the project is implemented sufficiently enough. It will reduce the cost of schooling, which is the target of government, to make sure that parents actually, the burden on the parents is actually taken off their shoulders. That's why government is saying free quality education. So this project would complement that, because there is a component within that same World Bank project that talks about performance-based financing, meaning schools are given money so that they can improve on their performance. And the more you improve on your performance, the more money you attract. And so that also comes into play. Capacity development. If a school says we don't have too many teachers, or we don't have too many structures, but we have population is high, we can add structures to that school so that we will be able to accommodate more pupils in that school. The strengthening of the system and planning, budgeting, reporting in the education sector, all of that would have to be looked at, because most of what is happening in our schools today has to do with reckless spending. You know, when heads of schools would divert school funds to other activities. That is why most heads of schools are very reluctant to even open a school account, because they want the money to go into their private account. And that's the reason why there are delays usually in paying fees, subsidies to schools, because they don't have proper school accounts, and we don't pay money to private accounts, because the head of school will wake up one morning and then take off with the money. So all of these things come into play. And so, but there are also the negative impacts that we also need to look at. Soil, like soil erosion, sedimentation, and pounding. In any place, in places where construction is taking place, these are things that are bound to happen. And how do we address those? We have to look at that. Reduction in ambient air quality, pollution, and all of these things flying all over the place during construction. Noise and vibrations. Probably a mosque is nearby, and then construction is going on, or church, or school. All of these things have to be looked at, all of them. So there are a whole lot of potential negative impacts that this would not be the first time we're going to talk about this project, because we have to do several encounters to make sure that people understand the project so that they will appreciate it and then participate in it.
All right, so now, since this project is for the free quality education, and we're still in the first phase of the whole project, how has the implementation been so far? What has been done so far in the first phase of the free quality education?
Well, good many positive things have taken place during this free quality education. When schools reopened in September, for the first time, we saw classrooms filled with pupils, and teachers were teaching effectively on the very first day of school. Unprecedented in the history of education in this country in a very long time. That happened. I went to Kono, I saw the classes filled with pupils, and teachers were teaching effectively, and school heads were struggling to accommodate because more kids were showing up. So the enrollment also swelled up. Unprecedented. Like I just gave you the example with the WAS examination last year. We had 33,000 candidates. This year is a little over 137,000. See, just within a very short period of time. When they say free quality education, everybody is excited. They now want to be part of the school system. So we have also been able to pay fees to heads of schools. In the first term, we put aside 43 billion, and we expended a little over 30 billion of that money to pay fees to schools. Second term, an equal amount was also put aside, and we have been able to pay to do so also. 6 million pieces of exercise books were distributed at the very initial stage. That cost a whole lot of money. And then 90 containers of teaching and learning materials and textbooks also coming in pieces into the country. As they come, so they are transported to the respective warehouses and the districts for onward distribution to the respective schools. You know, so all of these things are happening. We're doing teacher training. The Teacher Service Commission is engaged in teacher development and teacher management trainings, and all of that is taking place simultaneously. We have our free quality education officers in the field in all of the districts. We have the Teacher Service Commission now have district, deputy directors in all of the districts. So all of these players simultaneously are playing. So within a very short period of time, from August when free quality education was actually officially launched to now, all of these things are happening. You know, it's unprecedented. Teacher recruitment You know, you'll be amazed. You know, over the last several years, that is one thing we have been struggling with. You come here all the time, someone will ask you about what is the condition of teachers, recruitment, reassessment.
So what is their fate now? What is the fate of the teachers?
So, like I have always said since the beginning of the free quality education, when teachers have been complaining that they are not factored in the package, matters of teachers are not things that a government will wake up one morning and just say, this is what we have for you teachers, whether you like it or not. They have always been negotiated behind the scenes. And now, thankfully, we have reconstituted the Teaching Service Trade Group Negotiating Council, which is the mandated council that will negotiate on behalf of teachers. Negotiations have been going on by stages. Finally, they will arrive at some amicable conclusion with those negotiations, and the package will be announced to the teachers, and hopefully they will smile when that is done. But it takes a process, so that we don't want to announce and then begin to come back and say, no, we don't want this. That's why the negotiating group is an integral part of this. Once they agree with the government on what should be dished out to teachers, then it will be announced. But for a start, you may have been hearing, if a teacher has taught for 10 years, you're entitled to 3 of your kids being paid for in a college or university, and that has started happening. Those names of teachers and their children or ward have started actually being listed out, so that they can begin to enjoy that benefit. But that's just a drop in the bucket for what has to come for teachers. There's a whole lot, because there's no way we can succeed in the quality portion of the free quality education if we don't take care of the teachers.
Okay, and that takes me to my next question before I come back to Ansumana. Now, examination malpractice, it's not new. It has always been in the school system. What's the minister? We've seen a few weeks back or days back the issue with the brotherhood and all that. What's the ministry's take on those issues?
Well, we are appalled by the reaction of our pupils in this country against the government's attempts to crack down on examination malpractice. Their reaction is disgusting, it's distasteful, it's disingenuous, and it's totally out of place. How, for the hell of me, would you, as a pupil, begin to peg stones on government vehicles because you say government did not allow you to spy in a public examination? That is so embarrassing and so disgraceful for this nation. Those are not the things that we want to hear from our pupils. Back in the days when you go to school, the last thing that you want to be identified with is spying in a classroom. But now it has become the order of the day, for a number of reasons. You see, examination malpractice and spying in general has become some kind of an institution, a money-making enterprise, unfortunately, where you have several stakeholders playing actively in all of this. And so it is a fight that cannot be overcome in a day. All hands have to come on deck in order for us to be able to begin to look at what is actually happening here. Because some parents will just want to say, I have graduated 2 or 3 of my kids from a college or university. That's all. They can care less to know if that particular child actually allowed education to go through him or her. It's all about, they went through the college, but did the college go through them? That's a whole other thing. That's why we're graduating a whole lot of them, and when they come out, they find it very difficult to get a job, because you go to the first job interview and you just messed up. And so you find it very difficult to attract any employer. These are the problems we have been grappling with. Several key players. There are people who make money out of this, like on the spur of the moment. They will sit in the comfort of their homes and tell their agents that I want 10 million in the next 3 days. And believe me, they will get 10 million in the next 3 days. These are the things that we are going to start to crack down on. Government has to come in big on this and have something in place. The previous administration had some committee on malpractice and everything with several stakeholders, ONS, because this is a national security issue. Civil society, SLTU, all stakeholders were represented in that committee. I am encouraging, appealing to this government to look at something like that. Call it whatever you want to call it. Call it a committee, call it a secretariat, call it a council, whatever, but let there be something that is put in place to look into this, because it is no longer going to help this nation. Very soon, our certificates would be meaningless and worthless and useless in any other country beyond the shores of Sierra Leone. You go to Ghana, they will say, what, certificate from Sierra Leone? Please. We know your country as one that has institutionalized spying and malpractice. How can we possibly guarantee ourselves that this is a very authentic certificate? That is the danger we face as a nation that we need to address very seriously and very quickly.
It's very serious. Okay, continue to stay with me. Let me bring in Ansumana. Now, Ansumana, we don't have much time left. How can you assess our water catchment areas? What's your assessment?
We, just took a small sample size last year to be able to ascertain how, we have managed our water catchment areas. And 19 out of the water catchment areas that we assessed, we came to realize that 79% of them have already dried up. And this tells you that there have been issues around encroachment on premises, the house to supply water. There has been quarrying activities going on, building as well as land grabbing, among others. So you see people actually building beyond the green belt, for example. So when you look at instances of that nature, even the 21% of the water catchment that do have water in them, you come to realize, that a significant portion of them do have protective covering again. So that exposes the water to a lot of contamination. It equally exposes the water for evaporation and all of other things. So you see the insufficiency of the water to be equally able to feed the major dams that are supplying water. So this, among other things, are also very critical and speaking to the issues around, non-effectiveness of the policies, because the policies may be there, but they just are not working. And people that are supposed to be really translating these policy provisions are equally part of the problem. So we came to realize that even people well placed within government, have been people who are also squatting on those premises. I'll give you an instance where in 2017, 2016, we did a joint assessment, including members of parliament and, the Ministry of Water Resources, the Presidential Wash Advisor. We came to realize, including the Ministry of Water Resources, we did an assessment that was very joint, and we came to realize that out of 78 hardcore houses that were premised on catchment areas or like Boma Valley premises, the Ministry of Lands were like very pragmatic enough to call for all those households or those owners of the houses to be able to come forward with authentic documentation. So all of them, it was only 8 out of 78 hardcore houses, it was only 8 of them that came forward with documentation. And out of the 8 that came forward, it was only 3 that had authentic documentation. The rest were having photocopies of subsequent ministers' signatures. So this tells you how we have equally been part of the problem as citizens, even as us within government, and equally us as people around those catchment areas who have been very quiet, in addressing the issues. So the laws must be there to be able to ensure that people are brought to book, and people within government who are also part of the policy, spectrum are also, part of the problem, the problems we are experiencing. So how do we now ensure that the policies are translated to the fullest? I'm not calling names now because we already know someone that was part of, an environmentally sound institution who actually, placed a premise on an area Guma Valley was wanting to place a sub-treatment plan. So all of these are part of the problem. So how do we now get government to move beyond the comfort zone, to collaborate, interministerially, I would say, like interministerial collaboration within, of course, the Ministry of Land, Water Resources, Ministry of Local Government. The municipal councils are also very key. So how do we ensure now that there's this joint collaboration at the respective levels to be able to really look at how we are managing our very limited and scarce resources, so at least by years to come we don't get to vacate from Freetown, for example, voluntarily in search of water elsewhere.
So quickly, you've been dealing with water issues. What are some of the things that WashNet has done to help in helping solve our water association? What have you been up to?
What we have done, in fact, part of what I just mentioned, the water catchment areas, we are providing more of the evidence, so at least we are able to compel government to action. So And part of our joint processes, like the joint ministerial oversight as well as the monitoring of those systems, is to be able to ensure that they are able to see things firsthand and spur them to action. We are equally supporting the Ministry of Water Resources. Last year alone, we supported them with a study on water quality. So how do we now ensure that there is this harmonized, standardization of water quality? Because what the alternative service providers are providing, like water traffic companies, you take Standards Bureau, you take other private companies, you take equally with WHO standards, there are variants with the parameters that they are using to measure water quality. So how do we now have like a standardized national system that is also, harmonizing the quality of our water? We equally provide the level of capacity as well as knowledge to diverse stakeholder groups, from citizens group to equally within government. Of course, we have engaged members of parliament a whole lot, particularly with respect to key issues around the legislations, as well as key issues around global commitment as to how members of parliament are key with respect to making well-informed decisions that are also.
So we're rounding up now. What message would you like to pass on before we go?
We are in the rains already, and the vulnerability to water-related illnesses are key, particularly, to cholera outbreak. So it's about being very sound with respect to our water safety measures, particularly at the household level. And government, on the other hand, must be able to ensure, that its dry season, plan is also up and running, so at least we're able to also meet some of these problems as they emerge.
Okay, thank you so very much, Musa Ansumana Soko. Quickly, Brahma Michael Ture, what's the way forward? What would you like to pass on before we
Well, the way forward is still on this examination malpractice. We have to do something about it as a nation. As for the project, we will continue to articulate the things that are contained in it and what people are supposed to know, so that once implementation starts, we will not face any problems. But it's a very serious project that will complement the free quality education very extensively and in very profound ways. So we're excited about it as a ministry.
Okay, thank you so very much. I've been talking to Brahma Michael Ture from the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, and also I've been talking to the National Coordinator WashNet and Sumana Soko. We've been looking at water issues in the country. Do join me tomorrow at 9 a.m. for another edition of the Star Good Morning Show. Thank you very much for watching. I am Leonora Jawara. I'll leave you with a wise word for today, which comes from Maya Angelou. She says, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must never be defeated." Have a blessed day.